today, which is session 3. This is week 3 of the OptiChannel Secrets training. And today we're going to talk about how to distribute content to create leads. And if you've been with us the past 2 weeks, right now we're in week 3, which is right here. If you missed any of the earlier sessions, please make sure to go back and watch those. If you need help finding those in the Google Classroom, let me or my team know here in the chat so that we can get that information over to you and we can follow up with you, all right? But you have to be caught up with where we are today, at least for the best learning experience, and I wanna make sure you have that opportunity to watch those videos. So ask me or my team if you need those over there in the chat, and we'll get those over to you. So what I wanna first do here, and welcome everybody. I see a bunch of new names coming in here, coming into the room. So you haven't missed anything yet. Hey, Jason, it's good to see you. I know that you just joined us, and hopefully you're caught up, but it's good to see you here in this training as well. What I want to start with here is a quick recap of session 2, which was the last class that we were in. And if you remember, we looked at this 4-step framework and a set of tactics that you can use for OptiChannel communication. And it's all predicated on what you learned in week 1. This idea of, as you want to grow your business, as you want to refill your sales pipeline, as you want to continue to grow, what we argue here in this course is that you need to create a movement. You need to build your brand by giving your audience ways to engage with you that's going to start to generate leads and drive sales. And we use this framework that says you need to have an expert or a guide, you need to create a new opportunity for your audience, and you need to give them a future-based cause, right? And this is how you start to position yourself in a way that's going to differentiate you from your competitors and put you in a unique position in the market. So if you missed any of that, again, go back and refer to week 1's video. What we talked about last week was in the context of this model around how you should be communicating through social, through email, and other channels that are optimal for your audience. We talked about how you can find a piece of content that you're going to drive traffic to, and then use that to generate leads, right? You're going to start to siphon that engagement to create leads. And what we didn't really touch on in any great detail was what we're going into today, which is the social aspect of that, specifically in LinkedIn, okay? And we're going to talk about how you can use content through LinkedIn to drive engagement, to drive conversations, leads, and sales. And LinkedIn is a big part of the OptiChannel promise right now. You know, one of the things I'm trying to teach you and show you is that you need to learn where your people are congregating. You need to learn to talk their language. You need to learn to talk in the way that works for them. And you have to use the channels where those people are hanging out, modern channels. So LinkedIn is one of those channels right now where there's a lot of attention, a lot of eyeballs, a lot of engagement. And it's something that's going to help you serve not only your audience, but also get you what you want, which is in many cases more leads, more sales, repeat orders, those types of things. All right. So for a lot of you here in this class today, LinkedIn is going to be the next area that you're going to want to invest time into. Even if you're already there and you think, it's not going to work for me, or it hasn't worked for me, you're going to want to really pay attention today, because we're going to break apart how you can start to do it in a way that should move the needle for you. All right, so we're going to focus on this aspect here of what we looked at last week, which is social, and how to drive traffic to content in a way that's going to generate leads for you. And if you remember, I showed you how to find content that's likely to engage your audience by creating a target market. We looked at how to take that piece of content and put that call to action overlay on it. We looked at how Mindfire does its magic in creating campaigns for you that get you 80–90% of the way there, and how you can start to send email traffic, social traffic to that content, and then siphon it to create leads, right? And what's cool is we saw a lot of you start to do that over the past week or so. I know that Iram and his team and Jess, we got a lot of questions. We can also kind of see what you're doing, and we're always monitoring how you're using the software. It's great to see many of you doing that. If you have any questions, I know some of you said I went kind of fast, and I do tend to get excited and move quickly. If you have any questions, or if you need any help, go over to the chat right now and say, I need more help with, and just tell us kind of what the area is that you think you need help with. And then my team will go through and parse that, and we'll figure out what we need to do to help you. All right, we'll follow back with you. So take a moment now. If any of you need help, look around the conference room if there's other people there in the room with you. If you made any notes last time or over the past week, if you hit kind of a stumbling block or something you have a question on, go over to the chat. I want to know if you have any questions, and then my team, like I said, will follow up with you. All right, so take the opportunity to do that now if you need help in any way. So for today, what we're going to do is we're going to go a step deeper into this whole OptiChannel communication method. And we're going to look at how you can distribute content for maximum engagement and for lead generation using social. And I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to really focus in on LinkedIn for you today, okay? And the first place I'm going to start as we do all of this is in the mindset. What you have to have in the 6 inches between your 2 ears that's going to orient you to what you need to know to do this right, okay? And so it's in the context of this model, the stuff that we've been talking about over the past 2 weeks, that I really want to focus in on this social element, okay? Now, I know for some of you, because I have conversations with you folks all the time, some of you might be thinking right now, I don't have a big network. I don't have a big following on LinkedIn or a lot of Facebook friends, or I never even heard of this TikTok thing. What is that? And what I need you to know as we go into this is that you don't need to have a big following, especially on LinkedIn, which we're going into today, okay? You can have a few hundred, maybe even a few thousand. It doesn't require a big network in order to get the things that you want out of LinkedIn. But what you do have to have is the right mindset. You have to know what you're doing, okay? You can use it kind of willy-nilly like everyone else or 99% of the others do, or you can learn what the 1%, less than 1% are doing that's actually making it work for them and apply yourself to learning that. And that's what I want to show you today, okay? So don't worry if you don't have a lot of connections, a lot of followers, a lot of contacts on LinkedIn. That doesn't factor in. You can grow that. I'm going to show you ways to grow that, but don't think because you're not there yet that this is out of the question for you, all right? So I'm going to show you in the context of what we've discussed so far, how to really focus in on LinkedIn and the mindset that you need to have. If you remember last week, I told you the way I kind of teach this material is I go through the mindset, then we talk about the strategy or the framework, and then we get into the tactics. So right now I'm in the mindset part, okay? And this material that we're covering today is really going to hit you differently depending on where in the organization you happen to be. For some of you, you know, you're doing all of this stuff. You're doing the strategy and the tactics. Some of you are just doing the tactics. Some of you are setting strategy and others execute the tactics, all right? But I want you to know kind of the full stack of all of this stuff so that you know how to get this done no matter where you happen to be in your organization. Distributing content to generate leads as it pertains to social, or heck, even for email, requires kind of a different way of thinking about this stuff, okay? It's not sharing like you would share, I don't know, what you had for breakfast as an example, right? The quintessential social media post, right? Some of you I've seen already kind of do this naturally, or you're picking it up. Some of you are noticing what others are doing and starting to do it in a way that's getting you better engagement. But for others of you, this is going to require kind of an intentional rewiring of your brain, of the connections that you're making in your brain, okay? Let me explain to you what I mean. This part's hard for people here. And before you think, shoot, this is gonna be hard for me too then, Dave, I want you to remember that in this difficulty, in some of this hesitation that you might be feeling right now, or some of this disbelief that you might be thinking around, can I really do this? In that is the opportunity that men and women you have, okay? Because once you learn how to break through that, which most people don't take the time to learn, that's where you have a big strategic advantage, okay? Other people will stop or they're gonna give up because they're not gonna take the time to learn this. But unlike them, I know that most of you here are gonna push through that, okay? So don't give up. This is crucial for you right here. The mindset that you need to have, like this image that we picked here on the screen, is that you need to give away value. And I'm sure you've heard that before. But what does that really mean? And you really have to take that to heart and think about it, because you need to give away your best stuff. Think of it like handing out hundreds. You really have to think about it at that level. You want to be giving away when you post, when you're creating content in social or in email, or as you're pumping out this marketing communication, When you distribute that, you need to give value. You need to give, and then give some more. If you remember, I think it was last week, we had that ATM example, or maybe it was the first week. And I made the joke that that was IRAM's bank account, if you remember that, right? There was the bank account with $1 million balance in it. You have to continue making deposits into these accounts of goodwill within your market, within the prospect, within the customer, so that when it's time to actually ask them for something or to try to sell them something, there's enough of a balance built up there, right? You don't want to be non-sufficient funds when it comes time to actually need to extract that value. So for a moment, friends, I want you to let that sink in, this mindset of that you need to give your best away. And I know that when I say that to some people, they think, well, if I'm giving my best away, what am I selling? Does that reduce the chances of me actually selling stuff? And what I argue to you is that no, the money, the revenue, the sales, the opportunity, the leads are in the questions that you evoke by giving away value. And I know that's strange, but I'm going to show you what I mean, okay? So as this is rolling around in your head, let's take this mind shift, this mindset a little deeper. And when you understand that your role in sales, in marketing, in your company's leadership is to give away value, then when you're on social media, like when you're on your phone here, which many of us do, I know most of you are on social, you need to spend some time or more of your time not doing what other people are doing. Most people, if you look at this illustration here on the screen, imagine, let's say this guy's on Instagram, maybe this guy's on Twitter, let's say she's on TikTok, right? This guy looks like he might be on LinkedIn and she's probably texting somebody, right? For a moment, let's just imagine they're mindlessly scrolling. They're getting those dopamine hits, right? Maybe one's looking at cute girls, one's looking at cute guys, or maybe they're looking at cats or food or exercise equipment, whatever the case may be, whatever gets them excited, right? What I argue you need to do, men and women, your minds needs to change to think of yourselves as, instead of consuming social, instead of just mindlessly scrolling, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with doing that. Of course, take time to relax. But consider for a moment switching your mindset to that of a producer of content, okay? A producer of content that's seeking engagement, that wants to give value to his or her audience, that wants to arrest somebody's attention in the newsfeed. When I say arrest, I mean do a pattern interrupt that's gonna stop me from scrolling and actually pay attention. So a producer of content, which is what I want you to start to think about yourselves as, when you're a producer of content, you're always looking around at what other people are doing. What are they posting? So that you can get ideas for yourself. Let me unpack that a little bit more, okay? So let's use this image to illustrate the idea of a consumer of social media, or of content. A consumer looks for a giggle. They're gonna go for that adrenaline hit, kind of that mindless entertainment. They use different platforms, like they use Insta for pictures, they use TikTok for videos, LinkedIn for work, without really thinking about why they go to different places to do different things. Sometimes they engage, maybe they'll just hit a like, or they might even share the content or tag somebody in it. They don't often post all that much. Sometimes, consumers of content are afraid of posting, or if they do post, it's just posting from the hip, or they're ranting about something, right? I'm sure this resonates with many of you. Whereas on the other hand, is as a producer, as an OptiChannel producer, men and women, what I want you to start to do is, when you're on social, look for posts and content that are getting attention and engagement, and try to understand why that's happening. Also, whereas folks over here are just going from platform to platform for the different things that they do, I want you to understand that each platform has its own context, its own style, its own set of informal rules in some cases. And as a producer, your job is to be looking at what works in each place, and also trying to take what works in one and experimenting to see if it works in another. You can often get a lot of success by doing that. As a producer, you engage, you ask questions, and you keep things in what I call a swipe file. You've probably heard that term before. You keep things in a swipe file for future reference. So what I often do is, on my phone, I just take a picture of it. I put it in Google Keep. You can use any number of different applications. And I'll put one for good ideas for new posts, another one for good ideas for ads, another one for good ideas for emails. Sometimes I'll see something that's working in LinkedIn and I'll say, maybe I should try this in email. So as a producer of content, that's what I want you to consider doing. Have a swipe file where you're keeping this stuff. And as a producer, you're creating at least one piece of content per day, at least one per day, okay? Now I'm gonna give you all a second here. Go over to the chat. Let me get this to everybody here. And I'm just gonna type hello, so you know I'm here live and in person. How is this hitting you, men and women? Are you understanding what I'm saying here? For some of you, this is maybe something that you're already doing, you just didn't put these labels on it. For others of you, this might be scary. I wanna know what you're thinking. Working on creating infographics that break down print knowledge to post on social media to educate those who may not understand the printing terminology. So Garrett, that's fantastic. Infographics are very good. There's certain platforms where those do better than others. So I'm sure as a producer now, you're gonna start to pay attention to some of that and figure out where you can leverage those. I wanna hear from a few others of you. How's this hitting you? Are you understanding what I'm talking about here? Chuck is saying, I like it. I've been looking for content to send. Yes. So Chuck, I don't know what platforms you're on. Tell me, are you on LinkedIn? Are you on Facebook? Are you on TikTok? Where are you hanging out already, Chuck? And then my hope for you would be that you start to look at things with new eyes now after today's class. Tracy's saying, producing one piece of content a day seems overwhelming. Yep. Is it recommended to create content in batches? You know, Tracy, everybody has their own workflow or work style. I absolutely know that seems daunting. But remember, when I say a piece of content, it doesn't necessarily have to be a complete post. I'm going to show you what I mean by that in a moment. It could literally be a thoughtful reply to someone else's post, okay? That's content as well. So if you just, drop a comment that says, ha, 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 that's not really what I'm talking about. But in the case of your industry, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's real estate, giving somebody your insight into what the local market is doing, listing to sale prices, or what's going on in with mortgage rates. Something that is more than just a ha 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 is what I also mean. So one piece of content per day doesn't necessarily mean creating your own post. It could, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that. So Chuck, you're saying you're on LinkedIn and Facebook. Fantastic. Amy says, absolutely, Facebook and LinkedIn. Okay, good folks. So Tracy, let me continue to encourage you that for what you're doing, especially thoughtfully engaging with comments, and we're going to talk about this here in a little bit. That's a very, very good way of also generating leads, okay? And it may not make sense yet, but I'm going to tell you what I mean here in a moment. So that's kind of the mindset that you need to have, okay? So that's up here. And now let's kind of put a framework in place to understand how you can distribute content in a way that's going to increase the engagement, increase leads, and ultimately provide you with revenue generating opportunities. Chuck, you're saying you're on Twitter as well. Fantastic. So I don't know exactly where all of you fall within your organizations. I know some of you are owners, some of you are leaders, some of you are getting this stuff done on a daily basis in marketing or in sales. Some of you might be thinking, shoot, this isn't my job. Doing marketing, that's something someone else does. In fact, I was talking to one of the folks over at HP earlier today, and he said, our team does all this stuff for me. And I hear you. In a large organization, that might be true. But let me clarify how I see the world and what I want you to start to think about. This is from another Dave. I learned this from Dave Packard over at HP. Marketing is too important to be left to the marketing department. Who agrees with that? Drop a yes if you understand that and if you agree with that. What this means, especially for you as the business owners, is this is of paramount importance. How you communicate what you can do for customers and how you do it, that's it. You have to have a great product. But unless you can get the word out there and sell stuff, everything else is meaningless, right? And it's too important just to be regulated to one area of the company. For salespeople, what I mean here is don't leave your destiny solely in the hands of your marketing department. Maybe you're lucky and you have a marketing team that generates high quality leads for you day in and day out. But if you don't, start to take charge of your destiny, of your pipeline by doing what I'm describing to you here. And if you're not in sales or marketing, remember, you also have a unique view. If you're in production, or if you build the stuff that you sell, or if you're involved in something that's not necessarily sales and marketing, everyone has a role to play here in communicating for their organization in a way that's going to draw people to it, okay? So marketing is so important. You can't just leave it to marketing, all right? I'm seeing yeses from Garrett, yeses from Tracy, yes, maybe with an exclamation mark there from Dave. So if you're buying what I'm laying down, you're probably thinking, okay, so what do I post? How do I do this? I'm eventually gonna run out of stuff to say, right? I know I can find great content from Mindfire DaVinci, but I'm gonna run dry. It sounds like a lot, like Tracy was saying, it sounds like a lot to post one piece of content a day. Let me show you the framework for never running out, okay? And it's got a fancy name. It's called the Orthogonal 5. Don't worry, fancy geeky word. I'll tell you what it means. But it's something that's going to change the way you think about the content that you're producing. Here's what I want you to see. Look at this box right here. This represents the thing that you do, okay? Your business, your area of expertise, maybe your product, your mission, your platform, the thing that from a business perspective, or if I were talking to politicians, it would be the platform that you're running on. The thing that you're trying to communicate out there in the world is what this represents here, okay? Now, at the intersection of your business, of your product, of your platform, and an interest that you have is a post. So let me just give you a simple example. For Tracy, who's in real estate, right? She's trying, Tracy, correct me if I'm wrong, you want to sell more homes. At the intersection of that and a personal interest of yours, let's say fitness, and I don't know if that is or not, but let's say personal fitness is an area that you're passionate about. At the intersection, which is where the word orthogonal comes in here, at the intersection of your passion around personal fitness and real estate is a post. And what I mean by that is if you're out there on social and you're publishing content and it's always about real estate, real estate, real estate, this house, the market, this, that, only in that narrow kind of spectrum of real estate, if you will, then not only will it get difficult to come up with new topics, that's possible, but also your market's going to be like, okay, she's just a one-trick pony. You remember in high school, you had those friends that were like geeking out on one topic and that's all they would ever talk about? If you don't remember that friend, that was probably you. But there's always those kinds of kids growing up, you know, that they were so single-minded. You don't want to be that kid on social, okay? So this framework, this is how it works. You take your thing, whatever it is, and you create a list of 5 areas of personal passion or interest. Again, just using Tracy's example, could be personal fitness. Maybe her second is family, and so on and so forth for your top 5, okay? So is this making sense, everyone? I'm going to go into more depth here in a moment. Give me a yes if you're understanding. You want to create a list of your top 5 passions, your top 5 areas of interest, and you're going to use those to start to create content in a way that touches people. Yes, love this with exclamation marks, awesome. Yes, okay, cool. Now, I'm going to bring that back up on the screen in a second, but I want to address what I know some of you are thinking. Whenever I teach this live and in front of people back in the day when we could actually be with one another, I could always tell by looking at body language and facial expressions that some people are uncomfortable with this idea. Some people don't like sharing about their life. They feel that's private. And I understand that. I'm not saying you all have to do this, okay? Let me just explain to you the logic behind it before you jump to any conclusions. And maybe it'll make a new brain connection for you. So in the case of me as an example, and some of you probably already seen this, I show everything. I show my kids, my wife, I talk about personal stuff. And I know people always are asking me, why do you do that? How does that sell your Mindfire stuff? How does that make any money for you? Let me explain to you. The question is, why share on social in a way that exposes who we are as people? So in the case of Tracy as an example, at the intersection of, and this is fictitious, at the intersection of fitness and real estate is a unique angle that she brings to social media that's going to connect with people at a deep level. So when I say, why do we talk about one's personal life? And that's probably a question that some of you might be thinking right now. For me, it goes back to 1995. And in March of 1995, I was sitting on the couch in my mom's living room. I still lived at home at the time. I was right around 17 years of age, right before I moved out, actually. It was one of those, you probably have those green kind of leathery couches. I don't know why it was green, but the kind where if you sat on it too long and you got a little sweaty, you would hear that sticking sound as you sat up, you know? And I remember I was sitting there listening to Nirvana, which was one of my favorite bands and still is. It was on Friday night and I got a call from my mom. She was out doing something. And I remember I picked up the phone and she said, "Honey, your grandfather just committed suicide." And I remember my stomach kind of felt like I was going to throw up. I had this sensation of like the room kind of spinning and just really feeling totally confused. And my experience, unfortunately, with suicide didn't stop there. I remember, this is only now maybe 8 years ago, 2012. I was with Abby, one of my kids, our oldest. She was probably about 9 months old at the time. Saturday morning this time, cuddling in bed with her, you know, as is the case with our kids, we often will spend some sweet moments with them. And I got a call from my mom again. I didn't live at home anymore, in case you're wondering. But I could hear it in her voice that something was wrong. And what she told me is that my uncle, so my grandfather's son, my uncle, had also committed suicide. And here he is, professor at UCI, which is a reputable school over here in Orange County. He'd killed himself actually on campus, of all places, and my heart sank. It was again like this horrible, horrible feeling. And so I have a question for all of you. As I describe that to you, as I tell you this story, a deeply personal and emotional thing for me and my family, how many of you felt something when I described that? Go over to the chat. Just tell me if you felt something. How many of you had a suicide in your family? Again, this is private, not, you don't have to tell me if you don't want. But I know that when I speak to a room this size, usually somewhere around 30 to 40 people, there's at least one other person who has either had a first degree or a friend commit suicide. And so when I share about my life, the reason why I share this with you is because it will connect with you deeply, emotionally, viscerally, in a way that if I just came at you and said, "Hey, MindFire is the best OptiChannel software, you should buy it," you wouldn't really care, right? In a way that a press release for your organization, with all the mumbo jumbo that we have in press releases, all the copy and pasted text from the prior press release just changed for the current one, that stuff doesn't connect in this way. I'm looking over here to see, yeah, felt like I knew you, felt your vulnerability, made me want to know you better. Yeah, my family's friend and nephew took his life. No suicide or anything, but this authenticity is key to connect with people. Yeah, 100% felt something from hearing your story. Yeah, so I'm not trying to manipulate your feelings or do anything nefarious in communicating with you. I'm just trying to illustrate to you that if you take this model and you apply it the way I'm describing, you can create an emotional connection with your audience that is going to run circles around what your competitors can do, okay? So for me, if you were to look at my orthogonal top 5, okay, and these are just a few examples of what I might have in mind. I actually can share mine with you if you want, but I'm gonna break it down and do a really simple example here. Let's say that print is one of my passions. And let's say that marketing is the core thing that I espouse, or the core thing that I'm communicating, right? So at the intersection of print and marketing might be a post about a new HP Indigo, right? Some exciting new piece of equipment that I happen to see, on the floor of a client's location, or that I took a video of. At the intersection of print and marketing, there is a post for me. I told you that I like Nirvana as an example, right? At the intersection of my interest in Nirvana and of Kurt Cobain, there is a post on marketing. There absolutely is. If you think about it hard enough, you will find it as well. Now, at the intersection of another topic that's near and dear to my heart, which is dad life, being a parent, I know many of you are parents as well. At the intersection of dad life and marketing, there's a post. Now, in each one of these, this is going to hit a certain part of the market. This is going to hit another part of the market. And this is going to hit yet another, right? So not everybody in my audience is in the print market, but some part of them are like me, grew up in the 90s, and are going to resonate with Nirvana. Another part might not resonate with these two, but are parents or dad specifically. And they're going to resonate with what I post here. Is that making sense? Yes, I see somebody saying emotional connection like with Homeless Dave. Yes, exactly. So here's what happens if you do this right. Okay, look at the screen. I want to give you encouragement that if you do this right, this is what starts to happen. You'll have people start to message you. I'm interested more in your services, right? This is on LinkedIn. These are real life examples. Pleasure to connect. I'd love to get on a call at some point and learn a little bit more about what you do, right? I'd love to learn more about what you do, how you do it, and the average results. These are things that as you share in this way are going to elicit people to start to contact you. Okay, here's another one. Always willing to grow business and leads, would love to talk to you. So these things happen all the time for us. Here's another example. I don't know how many of you are do packaging. Obviously, Mindfire, we're an OptiChannel marketing technology company. We don't do packaging, but because I'm doing my Orthogonal 5 and communicating using these different intersection points, I often get leads for folks like you. Many of you here do packaging or print. And so here's one that came in through Facebook, right? Hey, sorry to bother you. Can you give me a quote on these? Do you have someone who will give you a quote, right? This stuff happens all the time. I think, Amy, you're here and you work with Bob. So this is actual snapshot of Bob. He's one of our members now. And he hit me up on Facebook, right? Need to chat. Give me a call when you get back. My number is blah, 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 right? And so this stuff happens all the time when you're brave enough to do what I'm describing. These things, there's Amy saying, yeah, these things will happen, okay? In addition, you're gonna get requests for podcast interviews, magazine interviews. People are gonna ask you to write for them. Webinar presentation requests, which by the way, you can charge for. Speaking requests, which you can also generate income from. For some of you who like to make investments in different things, you're gonna get investment opportunities. People are gonna ask you for quotes. And you're gonna get, hey, I've been following you for a while now. I wanna buy your stuff. Maybe not in that language necessarily, but you're gonna get these things where people say, hey, I wanna know more. I love what you're putting down and I wanna talk to you more. Now, of course, you're gonna get the weird business proposition like the rich Nigerian uncle. I don't know if you guys have this same uncle. This is my rich Nigerian uncle here, who, by the way, turned out to be this guy over in New Jersey. I don't know if you know, he's in jail now. I digress, but you're gonna get all sorts of weird things too. But by and large, the majority of what you're finding, what you're attracting to you is going to be stuff that's germane to you and your business. So here's the framework, and I want you to think about it for a moment, okay? I'm gonna give you a second. In a moment, I want you to drop into chat one or two of what you think your top 5 might be, okay? So if you were to fill this in for yourself, what would these things be up here? Give me 1 or 2. All right, Chuck is saying funny about the Nigerian uncle. Yep. I want to know from you folks now, okay? What would your top 5 be? Give me 1 or 2. I'm going to read them off. Dogs and music. Okay, so John, I would assume therefore that you have some knowledge of dogs, some love, passion around dogs, and can speak from the heart around that. Music, maybe a particular type of music or just music in general. Chuck is saying art and fishing, overlanding, mountain biking, skiing, muscle cars, and dad life. Amen to that. Leadership, family, service, technology, and community. David, that sounds very close to mine, actually. Garrett is saying gaming, music, and fitness. Chuck is saying rush. Okay, that's for his music. Amy, also similar to mine, print, marketing, art, kids, and events. What do you mean by events, Amy? I would love to know more about that. So what I'm going to ask you to do, folks, what you're going to want to do over the next couple of days here is start to think about what your top 5 are, okay? John is saying a cappella music specifically. Anne Marie is saying motorcycling, Barbie dioramas, forgive me, I don't know what that is, barefooting, death doula, and recovery. Very interesting. Those are some things I need to learn more about. So this is an exercise that I want you folks to think about, okay? This is going to change how you look at the content that you're creating. And now let me underscore why this is so important, okay? This is data from LinkedIn. This is not some stat that I just made up or pulled out of the air. Less than 1%, I put 1% here on the screen, but less than 1% of people create or produce content. 99% are consuming it. What this means is there's a huge appetite from the LinkedIn algorithm. And this is true elsewhere as well. Huge appetite for quality content. but very few people are doing it. Very little competition, in other words, okay? So when you do this right, this is a strategic advantage. This is a competitive advantage to sell more stuff, to increase your worth to your organization, to your family, to your community, okay? So this is very, very important for you to understand. And what I want to do now to take it a step deeper here is to look at the tactics. I want to give you some very practical tactics around how you can start to do this, okay? And remember, when I say tactics, I mean like when you're sitting down at the keyboard or when you're using your phone, I'm giving you very specific things that you should do. And as you do this, as you start to create this content, to create more leads and engage people on LinkedIn, to drive engagement and build the awareness of what you do, don't be afraid to experiment, okay? You shouldn't be afraid to try new stuff. What I'm giving you today, what I'm telling you today is stuff that we know it works. We know that it works, okay? But these things change, they ebb and they flow. You may discover something new that builds on top of all of this. So don't be afraid, for example, to post something upside down or just a blank video that's black, okay? Now, those might be silly examples, but those are all things that I have done, okay? And they will elicit different responses from different parts of your market. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there and try something different or new. Now, when you do this, I know some of you are thinking this, shoot, I'm afraid what people are gonna say. What are they gonna say about me? And here's an example for me of where this happens, and you have to kind of get used to this. Here was a post I did about, again, at the intersection of, for me, you know, of marketing and sales and dad life. I did this post about how I helped my kids run a garage sale to learn sales and marketing and customer service, right? For my, I think it was my 6 and 7-year-old at the time. And I put some pictures up, I did this post, it got a lot of engagement. But then look over here, this Yahoo, this guy, his name's Yuval, said, so in this story, who teaches the dad, he's talking about me, to not waste so much money on all this absolute junk that his daughter never needed in the first place. She's learning nothing out of it. This isn't a business. You spent money on this. She's selling at a loss. Only lesson here is that her daddy doesn't understand how money works. Ah! How would you respond if you got that comment? You're gonna get comments like that. But you know what I do? I engage the trolls. They're usually hurting. They're usually sad about something. They're usually interesting people if you can get past it. Not all of them, but some of them. And I've actually become friends with this guy. He knows that I use his example here. He grew up in a different part of the world, completely different background, has a completely different point of view, and it helps me understand a different part of my market. So I say this just to give you confidence. This stuff's gonna happen. Don't worry about it. Work through it. It is gonna take some time. You know, it might seem like it's slow at the beginning, but I'm gonna help you get from here over to here where you wanna be with these tactics, all right? So the first thing that I want you to know here, if you're taking notes, as you think about your top 5, and I've planted this idea that you need to be a producer, I wanna show you a way of, I'll call it spying, for lack of a better word, on what your competitors are doing, and even more specifically, what are they spending money on? What ads are they buying? What are they saying in those ads? Which ads are working? So that you can use that new mindset of being a producer, along with this information and your orthogonal top 5, to create your own content. Let me just show you what I mean. It's easier, okay? So here is, here's what I want you to see. If you look over here on the screen on LinkedIn, if you go, and I just picked Slack. I know none of you are competing with Slack. But let's imagine you wanted to know, how is Slack advertising? What are they putting in their posts and what's working? If you go to the Slack page on Facebook, okay, you don't have to do it now. I just want to describe to you what you can do here. And you scroll over here to the right, there's going to be a section called page transparency. You see where I've kind of boxed that? And if you click on that, this window comes up. And then you need to find this little section that says Add Library. Go to Add Library. And when you click on that, do a little video here for you, you're gonna see all of the posts that your competitor is putting their money behind. Okay, I'm just gonna let that sink in for a moment. How many of you knew you could do that? If you didn't know, say no with an exclamation mark. Okay, this is on Facebook. And you can go and you can see the comments, you can see the landing page, you can see their imagery, you can see who they're targeting in some cases. Now you have Donald Trump in a way to thank for this, because around the election last year and all that stuff with Congress and transparency and oversight, Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook and many of the other social platforms then followed suit, started to give us access to this for more transparency in what we're being targeted with on Facebook and other places. All right, so this is something that you can do in Facebook. Now, over there in Slack, if you take Slack a step further and you go over to LinkedIn, here's what you will see. If you go over to the same thing in LinkedIn and you click on where it says ads here, I'm still using Slack as the example, they have the same thing, okay? You'll be able to see all of the ads from Slack. And if you take this link right here, you copy the link to the post and you paste it into a browser, now what you're doing is you're looking at that specific ad in your browser, and you'll be able to see all of the people who engaged with it. So I know for some of you, if you think about your competitors, and I'm not suggesting you do anything evil or anything underhanded, but you basically now can see who's engaging with that post, who's commenting, what they're saying. You can insert yourself in that conversation, right? You can start to talk back and forth with them. And you can start to use that information to inform what you're going to be doing. The same thing is true over on Twitter. So again, for Slack, and you can go over and click on this little icon beneath the tweet. I saw somebody say that they're on Twitter. You can go over there and do exactly the same thing on Twitter, okay? So I'm gonna pause for a moment. How many of you just had a kind of an aha moment? Can you show me how to do it in LinkedIn again, please? Yeah, we'll send this out to you, Anne-Marie. So here in LinkedIn, you go to the company's page, and if they're running ads, you'll have this option here, and we'll send this to you, don't worry. Click on that, it'll come back with a list of all of their ads, and then from that, you can grab the link to the post, paste that into a browser, and it'll come up with this, all right? So David's saying, fantastic. Anne-Marie is saying, I had an aha moment. Cassie is saying, no way, I was just wondering this at the beginning of this class. Cool, that's the power of OptiChannel marketing. See, we knew exactly what you were thinking. Chuck is saying, this is cool. John is saying, looking forward to the search. Yeah, Paul is saying, wow. So this is another way to inform folks. Your thinking now as a producer, kind of give you that insight that a very small percentage of people know about, to be able to go in and start to create content that's going to engage your audience, all right? Sharon is saying, I knew about the Facebook ads, but didn't know it was on their social. Thanks. Yep, awesome. Dave is saying, great stuff. Cool. So that's tactic number one. Now, tactic number two, again, this is hands-on, getting your hands dirty stuff, okay? I want to talk to you about how to write posts on LinkedIn. Next week and the week after, we're going to go deeper into two important aspects of this, which is, number one, how to actually have a profile on LinkedIn that's going to generate leads for you. And then we're going to go deeper in how to write this content in a way that's going to get you what you want. But everything starts with what I'm about to show you right now, okay? This is kind of the foundation of, if you're going to LinkedIn, you know, whether it be on your phone or on your desktop, whatever you do, here's how you want to think about what you're doing there, the posts when you're creating content, okay? So the first thing is, again, these are suggestions. They're not immutable truths. You can be flexible with them. But if what you're doing isn't working or isn't working the way you want it to, I suggest you look at this list here and consider these things. Or if you're doing something and you want to get even better, try these, experiment with these, okay? The first thing is, when you're writing a post, write like you talk, okay? More or less. Yes, you could make it kind of stiff corporate jargon, but often those posts, those ads don't work as well as something that seems more conversational, something more like how you and I would converse if we were texting one another. So you want to make your stuff easy to read, which usually means that, and I'm going to show you this in a second, that you want to have some spacing in between your lines as you're writing your posts. You want to edit for clarity and for brevity, for shortness. So take some time to edit. And you want to write somewhere around a 2nd to 4th grade reading level. And I'm sure some of you are like, what are you talking about? But if you look at the research, you look at the data, it's something like, and I usually have the stat off the top of my head, but don't quote me on this, you can go look it up, something like 50% of all Americans, or people here in the United States, are somewhere around, I believe it's the 4th or 5th grade in terms of reading level. And there's a big part of the population that's even lower, okay? Now, depending on where you get your data, where you look at that source, you'll see different things. But the point is, for somebody like me and maybe some of you, when I initially write my posts and I check what grade level they're at, I'm going to show you how to do that coming up here in the next session. When you check the grade level, I'm often writing at a postgraduate level. I'm sure many of you would do the same. And so if you take your post and you evaluate it and see what grade level it's written at, and then you revise it down to 5th grade, 4th grade, 3rd grade, 2nd grade, you'll find that the lower it's written, often those posts will do better, okay? So that's something to try. Also, a lot of you post, and I see many people doing this, you post a piece of content or something on LinkedIn and you don't have a call to action, a CTA. What I mean by that is you'll say something and there won't be necessarily any next step for the reader to take. That step could be something as simple as, hey, connect or follow me for more tips or insights like this, or something along those lines. You always want to have something at the end of your post, and I'm going to show you in a second an example, but you should always have something that motivates that reader to engage and take one more step with you. The other thing is, and some of you know this already, but for some of you, this is going to be a light bulb moment. If you take the link to the article or the piece of content and you put it in the first comment, so meaning don't include it in the body of the post, extract it and tell people to go grab it in the first comment, what's going to happen is that LinkedIn will give you more visibility, it seems, more of a reach across LinkedIn if that link is not in the body. Now, people often ask, why is that? Well, what we think is that LinkedIn wants to keep people within LinkedIn. And so if they see a link inside the post that's taking people outside of LinkedIn, they narrow or decrease the amount of people who will see that post. So put it in a comment. And all of these things I'm going to go into more detail in week 5 to give you more tactical insights on how to do this. But this is the first set of things you need to be thinking about. Okay, any questions on this? I'm going to break this down a little bit further here. Any questions on what I just described here? Writing like you talk, making it easy to read, editing for clarity, writing at a 2nd to 4th grade level, having a call to action, putting links in the comment. Pause for a second here. I'm going to drink some water. What questions do you have on this? Okay, I'm going to go a step deeper here. Look at the screen now. So Tracy is saying, do we use emojis in the post? Tracy, you know, I would say experiment with that. We certainly do, and many do. And in many cases, it seems to have a positive impact. So I would say feel free to experiment with that. Does not seem to have any negative impact. Any other questions on this, please let me know. I'm going to come to that, come over to the chat here in a second and look at, see if there's more questions. So if you look at the screen, let's imagine that what's on the right-hand side is a LinkedIn post, okay? Just kind of a mock-up of what a post might look like. This is the border of the post here, and this is supposed to be different content lines, okay? So the first thing I want you to notice is that the content isn't all jumbled together. It isn't all pulled together in one big blob, okay? There's maybe one line, a space, another line, a space, another line, okay? There's actually a name for that. I don't know where it originated. It's called broetry. If you Google that, you'll find examples of broetry. But this is how I would encourage you to think about writing your posts, okay? And the thing that you have to keep in mind here is that your first line is key, and you should obsess, if you can obsess over that first line, okay? Because you want to have what we call a pattern interrupt, something that stops me in my scroll, some first line that makes me want to click those 3 dots that says more to actually continue to read more. So think about your first line. In one of the upcoming sessions, I'm going to give you about 50 first line kind of templates that you can use to kind of get the wheels turning or to give you inspiration as to what that first line should be. Chuck is saying double spaced. Yes, also known as double spaced. Yes, correct. Anne Marie is saying, so when we write about our passion, do we need to tie it back to our business? Anne Marie, yes, in some way you can, but you don't have to, okay? When you're creating those posts and people are seeing them, you certainly can tie it back to your business, but it doesn't necessarily always have to directly tie back, because the point is your audience, as they see it, are going to learn something new about you. And perhaps the next time you do post about your business, the fact that you posted about, one of the things that's your personal interest a week ago or a few days ago is going to be in their mind and will help draw them closer to that post, if that makes any sense. So first line, obsess over it. Like I said, one-ish line per sentence, per sentence fragment, if you will. Line breaks in between, short, easy to read. Fragments are even okay. It's going to seem a little unnatural at the beginning, but that's easier, especially on the mobile device, and it engages people in a way that big blocks of text sometimes are not able to do. And like I said, include a call to action. So give instructions like drop a yes to join our webinar instead of just putting the link to the webinar. And I know this sounds weird, men and women, I know it does, but you want engagement and you want your post to work, try this. So instead of just putting the link to the webinar, I either say, hey, the link to the webinar is in the first comment, or say drop a yes or drop something, because then you're starting to get people to engage. You're getting what we call micro commitments, okay? You're getting them to nod their heads and start to do things that are pulling them closer and closer to you. Now, at the end here, you see where it says your name? That's going to be your name, obviously. You should tag yourself at the bottom of the post. If you don't know how to do that, I will be showing you how to do that. Don't worry, okay? The reason why you should tag yourself at the bottom of the post, I know it sounds weird. I'm talking about LinkedIn again specifically, is that when people share your content, okay? When people take this post of yours and they like it and they start to share it, you're going to get notified if you're tagged, okay? So if you don't tag yourself, you may lose that visibility into where your content is going, and you may be losing opportunities to engage with a wider breadth of audience, okay? So tag yourself, which gives you that insight. And also, if in your call to action you say something like, hey, don't forget to connect with me if you like more tips on how to engage donors with direct mail, as an example, then this makes it easy for them as they're reading this to just click on your name and connect with you, okay? Now, the other piece that I want to show you here are these hashtags. We recommend including hashtags. They can be at the end. They can be woven in throughout the content. Pick a few relevant hashtags and make sure you check the visibility or the follower count on those hashtags. Don't go willy-nilly or make up hashtags. Let me show you what I mean. So sometimes you'll see this. You'll see people do something like, this is a great post, you should really love it, using a hashtag at the front of that, right? If on LinkedIn, and I'm going to show you how to do this in an upcoming class, if you look at how many people are actually tuned into that hashtag, it's 0. It doesn't get you anything. Sometimes people make up silly hashtags because they think that's the point of a hashtag, okay? It's not, especially on LinkedIn. Whereas on the other hand, if you do a hashtag like this one, digital marketing, this one has 27.5 million followers, okay? So check your hashtag's reach. Make sure that it's something somewhat germane to what you're talking about and that it has a followership that's meaningful to you, okay? Now, let me pause, see if you have any questions. This is kind of a general format here. Let me know if you have any questions. I know we're getting close to our time. I sense we're gonna go a few minutes over. Hopefully that's okay, but don't worry if you have to drop out. What questions you have about how to create content in a LinkedIn post, go over there. David is saying, I love the tag yourself option. Yep, that's very important. Kushal is saying, this is what we're planning to do with social media connector. Yes, that's right. Anne Marie, how do I check hashtags? Anne, I'll show you that. Certainly in an upcoming session, but if we have time, I'll actually go live into LinkedIn and show you that here in a second. What other questions, comments, folks? Let me know what you are thinking about here, and I will help you. Let's see, Chuck is saying, I never knew how to create my own hashtags or understood it. Yeah, so in the context, Chuck, for you and for the others, in the context of LinkedIn, the hashtags are terms that other people have subscribed to. Other people have expressed interest to explicitly. So they see more content about that term in their feed. So when you include a hashtag in your post, you're now going to be showing up potentially in their feed. So you're widening the reach. You're telling LinkedIn how to widen your reach in terms of who you're going to be able to engage. Let's see, why do some have an excessive amount of spaces before the hashtag? Amy, you know, I think some people feel that the hashtags are kind of ugly, and so they push them down the page. Other than that, I've never heard anything specific about why folks do that. I explained hashtags as a giant file folder and a way to search the topic. Sharon, yes, very good. Tagging ourselves is by doing @Anne-Marie. Yeah, kinda. Let me show you, Anne-Marie, what I mean by tagging yourself here if we have time. Okay, help me remember if I forget. All right, okay, cool, very good. I'm still wondering a bit about the content I'm providing in the first line. Is it personal or content related to my personal passions? So John, what I'm talking about here is, let's say this could be any post. This could be a post that's directly about your business. This could be a post about, and forgive me, I don't remember if dad life is one of yours. It could be a dad life kind of post. All I'm saying is that regardless of the post that you're doing, heavily consider what your first line is about so that it engages the reader to continue going through the rest of the post and actually engage in the comments, okay? So let me keep going just out of respect for time, and I'll come back and answer any of the remaining questions. Now, when you post, there's a couple of things that you should immediately do, all right? The first thing is, and this is part one of two, and I'm gonna speed it up a little bit because I know we're short on time. You should tell your team, this is something that not a lot of people do, tell your team, your work team, your staff, whoever the case may be, tell them to go find your post on LinkedIn organically within their feed, okay? Tell them to go search their feed and find your post. They should click the show more, those 3 dots and the show more, leave it open on their screen and scroll around a little bit, okay? I'm not suggesting that you game the system. I'm just telling you that LinkedIn, part of their algorithm favors dwell time. That's one of the facets of their algorithm, meaning how long is somebody actually looking at the post, okay? And so by you telling your team to go find the post, dwell on it, and then like it or do some other kind of engagement, dropping a comment or tagging somebody that they think might benefit from it, or replying to somebody in that post, this is giving LinkedIn additional signals to help widen the reach of your post, okay? So when you reply to people on that post, give them some insight. Or like I was telling you earlier, Tracy, ask them a question. Or just say thank you, but do something that engages in that post. Have your team do something that engages in that post, and that's going to help you gain more readership or viewership of that post. Now, what you should do, you, the person who just posted this, okay, you should go in, and anybody who drops a comment, go in and like it. Go push the like under that comment, okay? You should reply to all of the people who have taken time to comment something. And make sure that when you reply that you actually tag them so they get notified that you replied, okay? One of the things I often see is people will get engagement on their post, but they'll just leave the comments. This is called social media for a reason. You need to be social. That's going to help you drive people to see your content and people to actually start to reach out to you to ask you for your services. So reply to the comments. Connect with everyone in your comments or who's liked your post that's in your space. Sometimes you're gonna see, you know, Forex traders or things that don't matter to you. I'm talking about connecting with the people that seem meaningful. And again, I'm gonna show you exactly how to do this if this is foreign to you. But you want to engage. You want to engage with that post in a way that's social and that gets your community, gets your tribe, gets this audience of yours to start to feel connected to you. So this is, you know, the way we suggest you do this. It's kind of the right-ish way. When I say right-ish, I mean, again, these are not immutable truths, but these are things that we know work, and we highly suggest that you try these. And I'm going to take you into more detail in week 5, all right? So when you start to do this, this is the kind of lead generation that you're gonna start to see. You're gonna start to have people coming to you asking for your services when you do what I'm describing. Next week, we're gonna focus here on setting what we call a magnetic LinkedIn profile. This is a really important part of this whole process. Your profile on LinkedIn, like what I have here on the screen, is kind of your home base on LinkedIn. And this is where a lot of the lead flow is going to start to come in. So you need to dial this in right. And there's some very specific things that most people do not do that you need to start doing that's going to give you a leg up on the competition, all right? So next week, I'm going to talk to you about how you can engineer your LinkedIn profile to maximize your lead flow and your engagement as you're going across LinkedIn and engaging with other people. All right. So with that, I'm 2 minutes over the official time, but I'm not going to go anywhere until I answer your questions. So let's get into the questions. And I will see what we've got here. And then Jess and Iram, if you have any other folks who have communicated with you privately, dump those in to the chat for me so I can answer those. So let's see. I'm going to see if I can capture everything here. Are hashtags useful in Facebook? Yes, Amy. Tracy's saying I have to go. Thank you. Awesome. No problem. David is saying, should we focus on our personal or business LinkedIn page? Fantastic question. Both. We will often test, David, the engagement for an organization when the content, when the ad is backed by the company, the brand, versus being backed by a person, maybe you. And often, not always, but often, the person outperforms the brand. Okay, so I would suggest you do both, but look at that for you and your organization. People connect with people, human to human. And I would highly suggest that not only do you keep your company page updated, but that you also leverage your personal, because often you can outperform what your company page does. Let's see. I've been playing around on LinkedIn, commenting, liking, or sharing over the past week. My views are up 120%, and I've had several requests for links from potential prospects. LinkedIn is powerful. John, you should be teaching this class, my man. That's awesome. Good for you. Now try doing some of these things, and let's see what happens. Report back next week. That's awesome. Chuck is saying, man, this is like blue ocean deep. Awesome. David's saying, I have to head out. Great session. No problem, David. Chuck is saying, thank you, David. Don't quit your day job. I won't. Brian is saying, do you want hashtags that don't have a gazillion followers or still substantial but not something followed by millions? Brian, hold on a second. I'm going to get to that. I'm going to answer for Anne-Marie as well. Anne-Marie, if you're still here, can you drop a yes so I know that you're still here? Amy's saying, I post company first. Can I be the first person to share, and will that help? If I post company first, can I be the first person to share, and will that help? Yes. Paul is saying, thank you, I have to leave. Anne-Marie is saying, I'm still here. Okay, so Brian, this is a little bonus for those of you who are still here. I'm going to go live into LinkedIn, and I'm going to answer Anne-Marie's question about how do you figure out how many people are on the hashtag, following the hashtag, and also answer your question. Let's see, Brian. So Anne-Marie, the first thing that I would do is yeah, Anne-Marie's here. So let's say a made-up hashtag, right? This is really cool content, yada, yada, right? What a lot of people do. So you type it in up here, and see how I put the hash sign, the pound sign right there in front of it? You can see it comes back in the search results. I can click on it, and it says, be the first to follow this, which means there's nobody listening for this is really cool content, yada, yada. Okay, not a surprise. But let's try something else. Anne-Marie, give me another hashtag. I'm going to do one up here that I know some of you might be interested in, which is direct mail. And you can see direct mail has 3493 followers. So Brian, to answer your question, you know, we experiment with this. And what I actually recommend to a lot of our students is that you keep an Excel spreadsheet or a Google sheet of top hashtags germane to your industry and monitor their followership, and then rank them by greatest to least, okay? And alternate between hashtags that have wide followership, millions, few millions, to those that are a little bit more narrow. Sometimes with the little bit more narrow ones, you'll actually get better engagement because there are people you know, in LinkedIn who are looking for content there and not as much content to compete with, okay? So I suggest you create a Google sheet or an Excel spreadsheet. In one column, put the hashtag. In another column, put the number of followers, and then start to monitor those as you're discovering them. Okay, so Anne-Marie is saying, thinking outside the mailbox. You want me to try that one? All right, so let me just copy that. I'm going to come over here, whoops, paste it in, thinking outside the mailbox. And I have thinking outside the mailbox right here. Looks like it has none. Nobody's following it. So now, what we haven't talked about today is that if you want to create a brand or brand a hashtag. That's also a very viable strategy. So don't be afraid if it has 0. If you're going to use it and you're going to create your own hashtag and try to rally your community around that hashtag, something that has 0 is a good starting place. But most of the people, 99% of the people that I see that are using hashtags that have 0 aren't doing it for that purpose. They just don't know any better. Jessica, great. Did I miss when you wanted me to send the link to the post? So I'm gonna come back to the questions. Jess, can you put that in? I did forget. Here, when I had this on the slide or on the screen here, you see this here, folks? I actually have a little bit more of a detailed breakdown in a LinkedIn post that I'm gonna have Jess put in the chat for you. So later on, go look at that and it'll help give you some additional insights into how to do this, okay? So she's gonna put the post in the chat, the link, and you can go read that later. Thank you, Jess. Let's see. Is there a tool that automates the lookup of topics with viewership? So John, that's something that actually we are working on to provide you inside of DaVinci. Great question. Very, very insightful question. I love that you asked that. Let's see. For another session, can you talk about how to use Zapier to build data? Sure. David, tell us more about what you need there, and let's see how we can help you related to Zapier. David, how do I tag myself? How do I tag? Okay, perfect. I see 2 people asking that. Okay, so I'm going to come back here, and let's say I'm writing this post here, right? Some great arresting pattern interrupt first line. I can't spell interrupt. That's the other thing you'll know about me is I don't really spell that well. So let's imagine you've written your wonderful post, right? And you want to tag yourself. So you do the @ and then you start typing your own name, and it'll pull up all the people that that have your first name, but you should be close to the top, and just do like that, okay? I usually do the little squiggly line here, something like that at the bottom of the post, and that's what I mean. Okay, so now when you hit post, which I'm not going to do here, but when you do post, then what that's going to do is create the hyperlink that folks can use to connect with you or to read more about you and start to engage you. Does that make sense, Anne-Marie and Dave? Did that answer your question? Let me know. Discard, yes. Okie dokie. What other questions do you have, men and women? Jess and Iram, what else is coming in from the faithful here? Anne-Marie says, perfect. Men and women, if you have any other questions, I'm going to hang for another moment. I appreciate you. I know we went about 2 minutes over officially. Thank you for sticking around. That's fantastic. Thank you, Jessica, for sending out the post with a little bit more detail on how to, what the anatomy of a successful post looks like. Let's see. Chuck, I know of a designer that posts multiple hits of content a day, and frankly, to me, it's a turnoff. Yeah. So Chuck, is he kind of single-faceted in what he's posting? Chuck, is that what you mean? Multiple times a day, kind of single-threaded kind of content? Yeah. So Chuck, that's what I meant by that high school friend. I'm thinking of the guy right now, and it was like one track, only the same thing all the time. And yeah, you're right. It gets annoying, I guess, is a kind way of saying it. So Iram is saying, Leon asks, can you give simple example of normal writing and changing it to 5th grade level? Sure. So Leon, are you still here? Can you drop a yes if you're still here? I want to make sure that that you're still here, Leon, when I answer your question. Iram, do you still see him here? Let me see. Sharon is signing off for now. Yes. Okay. Iram says Leon is here. Leon, are you looking at the screen, my friend? I want to show this to you, and everyone else is here. Anne-Marie, I think you'll like this. David, you're probably going to enjoy this as well. I was going to go into this in a subsequent week, but I'll give it to you now. You'll be ahead of the rest of the class. If you look at the screen, I'm going to put it in the chat here for all of you in a second. If you go to Hemingway app, this is what I use. I recommend you use. It's free, and you can immediately start writing. Okay, you just immediately start writing here in this space that it gives you. And let's say this was your post. Okay, Hemingway app is remarkable because it will tell you, using its machine learning and intelligence, which of your sentences are hard to read. So this color here are the ones that are hardest to read. The ones in yellow are simply hard to read, not the most difficult, but they're still hard. The ones in purple, they suggest alternative words. If you have a passive voice and you want to switch it to active, it'll tell you those. But to answer your question, those who have asked you about the grade level, see here where it says grade 6? This is what I use to write at a second grade level. So this is obviously a little above what I would suggest. If you come back and say, this is a great post, I want you to read it, and I want you to love and enjoy it. Right, so it'll start to update. Right now it's still too little. Let's try to find something that has a little bit more content in it. I'm gonna grab, I don't want to offend anybody by going to the wrong news site, but let me go to just some post here, and we'll do it real quick together here. Let's see, let's grab this first paragraph here, or second paragraph. Again, folks, don't, oh, I'm getting hit by an ad here. Don't shoot me for the sites that I go to. I'll go ahead and just write my own thing here. Taking too long to find content. And so this is the way you should write. It's extremely difficult to engage people online, but once you know how, you'll be able to do it. So as you're writing, you will find that Hemingway is going to give you, I'm going to reload it here, is going to give you a grade. Whoops. It's going to give you a grade. Still grade 0, not too bad. So I'm writing to a pretty low common denominator, but it's going to give you your grade right over here, okay? So that's what I suggest you do. As you're writing these posts, take them. If you're writing them, you know, in Notepad or wherever you happen to be doing it, throw over to Hemingway and get your grade level down. All right, any other questions? I'm gonna wait another minute or so. Thank you for staying on, 15 minutes past. Anne-Marie, Amy, Brian, Chuck, Dave, and David, Garrett, John, a couple Johns, wow, 3 Johns still. Leon and Paula, what else do you wanna know? How else can I help? How else can I serve you here today? And then I also wanna encourage you, make sure you come to the LinkedIn group. Jess, if you don't mind, or Iram, throw that back into the chat. Hopefully all of you are a part of this LinkedIn group. I want to continue the conversation with all of you at this level in that private group. Take advantage of it. You know, take a post and say, okay, what if I posted this? What does everyone think? And I'll weigh in on it. I'll give you our insights, okay? Go be a part of the community and start to contribute there. Anne-Marie is saying, thank you. Garrett saying, I had no idea Hemingway existed. John saying, so much fun. Thanks for the good information. Class is always enjoyable. Awesome. Love hearing that. Amy says, thank you. Looking forward to next week. John is saying, back to the 1 post a day across platforms might make this less irritating to others. Thanks, great session. Yep. All right, men and women, if you don't have any other pressing questions, thank you again for your time. I hope this has been informative. Next week, like I said, when we come back together, we're gonna be setting up what we call a magnetic LinkedIn profile. This is a cornerstone of your lead gen strategy with respect to LinkedIn. So it's really, really important that you attend next week and that you budget some time for yourself to actually work on your LinkedIn profile. And it's gonna pay dividends for you. All right, Anne-Marie says, thank you. Garrett says, thank you. Awesome. I appreciate all of you, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.